try. See if it works. Does it stay up? Really, you think? I don't think so.
I think we'll hear you.
No, that'd be crazy.
I think, yeah, we can hear you.
This is fine. This is better, much better.
You sure? Okay.
Holding it so. I'll try and put it in my ear again. I'll keep my glasses on. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it should surely go that way. No, it obviously doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's lower.
Why not that way? See, that's thing. Oh no. It doesn't matter what. It's most weird. I'll hold it. I'm happy. Okay. Questions? Any questions? I'm sure you're having all deep debates about emptiness out there. No questions? Yes. Yes. Okay.
One. Going back and then to the future.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the class, you said about the cause and effect.
Yeah.
It's a law. It's natural law.
Yes.
So this is not linear law.
Yes.
It's
It has to be. Isn't cause and effect linear?
linear
Is it not?
in a straight line.
It has to be. How else would it be?
Has to be.
Well, how else would it be? Give an example of cause and effect that's not linear.
When you say if I take this and do cause effect,
Yes.
but as you were explaining, it's not only this and this, but we had to have other
Conditions.
other conditions, not just one condition.
Okay. It's a question. We have to take the object we're going to discuss. So the object could be an event.
Mm-hmm.
So an event has many causes. That you have to be there, you have to have the ears, the person is there, the past karma. There's many, 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 many things.
Yeah.
Then, or you have an example of a cup or a person. So it seems whatever object you take, you have to look at what are the causes of this. And it seems to me, so I'm a bit confused, it seems to me the very word cause is like a word seed. Well, seed comes before the fruit. There's no other choice. Mm-hmm. How could it not be linear is what I'm saying. I'm confused. So give me an example of something that's the product of the law of cause and effect, where the cause doesn't come before the effect.
No.
So you're not saying that?
No.
So what do you mean by linear then?
Just one. Yes, like one direction.
Which is past and future.
Yes,
Then, of course it's linear.
in that way.
But that's my point. What is the option? Give me an example of something.
When you were talking about karma,
Yeah.
you said karma is intention.
The meaning of the word karma is the mind having a thought that sows the seed in the consciousness. So there's the seed, the thought, then there's the motivation, then there's the action of the body and the speech. There's many things, but the heart of it is the intention.
Okay.
Hang on. So the heart of it, a simple one would be, let's say you get sick. Well, they say that the causes of this, not the food that, right now we think the food that you ate is the cause. No, that's only a secondary cause. The main cause of you getting sick, that's one of the environmental karmic results of your past killing. So it's the residual result from an action you did in the past, intention to kill, and then it ripens as a moment of your sickness.
Okay.
So there's many causes, necessarily, of course, but it has to be linear
Yeah. Okay.
in that sense. You understand? Okay.
Yes, I get.
Okay. So
Thanks.
what do you mean then?
About the conditions that, to listen, the vibration, to hear. So if we don't have those conditions, we don't.
There won't be that experience, that moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's what I think he thought about linear, like it was dependent of the object receiving, in that sense, maybe, it's not so linear.
I don't understand.
Okay.
First, you have to take one phenomenon.
Okay.
So what is the phenomenon you are discussing? The experience of that sound. Is that the name of the phenomenon?
Yes, the vibration.
So the name, no. So we have to state the name of the phenomenon, and then we will look at the causes of that phenomenon. So what is the name of the phenomenon we are about to discuss?
The ringing of the...
No, that's one of the causes. What the name of it is your... listen.
Well, yeah, the sound.
Not even the sound. The name of it would be your experience of an experience of your ear consciousness.
Uh-huh.
So then there are many causes for this. Your ear consciousness, your physical body, the air, the thing hitting it. So they are all the causes that
If there's no noise outside that will prevent from...
whatever, they are all the causes that have to come together to produce one moment of your ear consciousness.
Yes.
That's what we're discussing.
Yes.
So in that sense...
It's like round. No? I mean, please.
What do you mean by round?
Well, that it could be just hitting the gong and then having it.
But that's a cause. What are you? You have to name an object first. Listen, the universe is full of trillions of different phenomena.
Yeah.
Each one of those phenomena has many causes. So we first have to establish the name of the phenomenon you wish to discuss. And so we have decided the one we are going to discuss is your experience at 15 minutes past 3 of a sound. That's the name of the phenomenon. So then we have to look at the causes of it. Well, then obviously they all have to come before you have the experience.
Yes. Yes.
Even that. Forget about past karma from past life, you know. You see?
Yes.
So we have to name the phenomenon, and then we can see it has your ear cognition.
Yes.
That moment, 1 second of cognition of sound. Many, many causes have to come together to produce that phenomenon.
Okay.
Are we communicating?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So of course we were talking mostly about the phenomenon called I and my experiences of happiness and suffering, and the way we suffer, and the way we have now, for the Buddha, completely wrong interpretation of the causes. Isn't it? So I am suffering now because I think he punched me. He did punch me, but I think that's the main cause. And I think it's not, I think the main cause of me is my mummy and daddy. So right there, Buddha says, you've got wrong logic, therefore you're guaranteed to suffer, because you haven't got the correct interpretation of the causes of my moment of suffering. When I think it's him who caused it, then I will blame him, or I do all the other actions. Whereas the Buddha says the main cause of his punching me is my having punched him. And then two parts of that. One is the intention to punch him, motivated by a wish to harm him. That sowed a seed in my mind that ripened 2.5 lives later when I meet him and he punches me back. So if I have that interpretation, Buddha says, which he says is an accurate interpretation, then I won't suffer, because I will learn from that. I won't blame him, I will accept it, and I know, do I like being punched? No? Well, I won't punch again. That's a perfect piece of Dharma. But as long as I think he's the cause of my suffering, I get angry, I punch him again, and that perpetuates samsara. This one finishes it. Do you see what I'm saying? Are you sure? Okay. Good. So Buddha's just saying he's not being moralistic. You see, we're so used to thinking that religion is a belief system, that we're supposed to believe in what Buddha says. No, I don't want you to believe a single word Buddha said. You don't believe in it. That's just intellectual laziness. But you take it as your hypothesis. You've got to learn it and listen to what he says, and then you apply it to your experience. This is anyway what practicing Dharma means. Not just say, oh, it's karma. What do you mean? Oh, I don't know, past karma. You just say that, that's just stupid. You've got to know the words. You've got to learn to know what is the cause of getting killed. Why did I get punched? Why is somebody out there not believing my words, even though you're speaking the truth? You have to know it's because you have lied in the past. This is not complicated. Why are you living in an environment that's very stinky and smelly and ugly? Smelly, because of sexual misconduct. Why are you living in an environment that's very violent and paranoid because of harsh speech in the past. These different things. It's very simple. Buddha's little list of 10 non-virtues, he's got these different explanations. It's not complicated. Eventually, to actually directly experience, from direct experience, know the causes of everything, that's when you're a Buddha. But this is what Buddha says. Everything in the universe is knowable. By definition, our mind can cognize everything. When we're a Buddha, we can do this, which includes all the karmas. Buddha says this is true. So we're taking this as our hypothesis. And the point I'm saying here is, the point that Buddha's making is our wrong understanding of why I'm suffering, he punched me, causes continuous suffering. Because if I think he punched me, I think I don't deserve it because I did not punch him first. So then the logical reason in our world is, therefore he's wrong. How dare he punch me? I didn't do anything to deserve it. Then of course I'm going to be upset. Of course I'm going to have fear. Of course I want to sue him. It fits. This is the materialist view. Buddha says, you've got it wrong, Robina. If he punched you, logically, you have harmed him in the past. It would not happen if you hadn't. If he kisses me, gives me $100, logically, I created that. I was generous in the past. So having this explanation, the Buddha says, not only is he saying it's correct, but having our mind become familiar with it and apply it in our life, that is a method for stopping suffering. Because it stops blame, it stops attachment. And eventually it'll help me realize there's no I from its own side. There's no experience from its own side. There's no killing from its own side. There's no suffering from its own side. It's a practical thing. It's like learning mathematics. You've got to get your facts straight. That means we have to know the words. We have to know the words. Yep.
When people say unintentionally, something happened, they were driving and they were not maybe too focused on, and something happened and he could not avoid to crash someone. And it was really unintentionally.
Okay.
How is that phenomena
that is
explained in Buddhism?
Easy, okay.
Okay.
So that you're driving the car. No, I'm driving the car, I don't see you, you run in front of me, and I run you over and you die. So there's various things there. First of all, there is the karma you created due to your past negative action to get killed. And that's the karmic result of your having killed. Okay? You wouldn't be killed otherwise. Every fish that gets caught in the fishing, they created the cause to be killed. Every lamb in the slaughterhouse, they're in there because they created the cause, probably by being the slaughterman in the past life, you know? So they create the cause to get killed. So you created the cause to get killed. Me, I didn't have any intention. There was no intention. Therefore, there couldn't be the karma of killing. There's no intention. Huh? What? What? Oh, who cares? Buddhism. That's not the issue. Listen, hey, shh. Listen. If I'm driving the car and I don't see you, and I'm not thinking about killing you, there is no intention, is there? So who cares whether it's in Buddhism? It's not the issue. Buddhism is describing facts. No, please, it's an important way to say it, darling. Buddhism accepts that there's no intention. What are you talking about Buddhism? Who cares what Buddha says? I don't care. I'm interested in Buddha. Either there is an intention in my mind to kill you or there's not. That's a possibility to have either an intention or not. That's the issue. So in my mind, there is no intention. If intention means karma, the thing that drives karma is the mind wanting to do something. Then if I didn't have the wish to do it and I didn't even see you, there can't be intention. Therefore, there cannot be karma in my mind. You experience the result of your karma. Because you must have killed in the past, otherwise you wouldn't be killed now. And I did not create karma then because there was no intention. Which doesn't mean, we shouldn't care if there's no intention. We need to become aware because we're harming each other all the time, but unintentionally, So that's why we have to become conscious and have the wish not to harm. So we become much more aware, and so we'll avoid doing things unintentionally. Do you understand?
I just wanted to see how to explain it if I'm not using the right words.
Sure.
If I could say in Buddhist terms, if I could say there's no intention, that's what I meant. if it was...
What do you mean in Buddhist terms, there's no
um,
intention?
Well, if, according to Buddhist philosophy or in Buddhist terms, I could say there was no intention. In whatever
What would Buddha...
accident.
Okay.
In any
first of all,
experience. In any
okay,
experience.
we've established that I was driving the car and I had no intention to kill. That's a fact. You agree it's a fact?
Yes.
So then how could Buddha argue with that?
Okay.
Why would he argue with it? What an idiot. What a fool. Who wants stupid Buddha if he argues with an evident fact? Are you seeing my point?
Yes, because everyone says, oh, there's always intention. There's always the intention that really permeates every act.
What? Excuse me, what?
Okay. In psychology, people say that there's always intention, what really is like the subdued message or intention. That always intention, maybe it could be disguised, but there's always intention. So...
You mean in every single thing everybody ever does?
Yes. It's
That's
like
a load of nonsense.
I know. I just wanted to clarify that, please. I just wanted to clarify that in many views in psychology, that they always say everything is intended, and I don't think everything is intended.
It's bizarre to me.
Okay.
It seems like an emotional statement.
Okay.
I mean, I would agree that we don't notice our mind, and many things that we do are intention. So, for example, we hit the mosquito. We say, oh, no, there was no thought there, but that was just instinct. Disagree. That is because of a karmic imprint, and the habit is so strong that there was intention there, but virtually instinctive. So that is intention. That is intention. Your hand would not have gone otherwise. Most of the things we do that we call instinct are driven by the habit of karma. But they're so instinctive. Alex Berzin says you should call them urge, an urge to do something. But it's because the point is this: if a person in their mind had no wish to kill ever, then when a mosquito bit them, they would not do this. No way. Not even this. No, that's what I'm saying. The reason we do this is because the habit to kill is so strong in our mind that it's virtually instinctive. And that's the karmic habit built up to kill. It's as if you didn't have an intention, but that is intention, but deeply instinctively habituated intention. Whereas literally driving the car and you come under my wheels and I don't even know you're there, obviously there's no intention. There clearly can't be. You know, in some cases, of course, there can't be intention. You know, do you see the difference? But a lot of the instinctive stuff we do, that in the West we'd say it's not intention, the Buddha would say it is, but at a very subtle level. Yes. Okay. Yes, I understand. Yes. So in other words, all the things that we would just say in the West, oh, that's instinctive. It's only instinctive because you've practiced it to perfection from past lives. So this little boy crying with compassion, his mother had not taught him. He instinctively had compassion. That proves he must have practiced compassion in a past life and got born with that instinct. Just like another child would instinctively harm the creature. That's because they got the habit to harm. So what we get born with, which in the West we just think is instinct, is the result of very strong habit in the past. That's what it is, actually. Do you see? With the way we call instinct for survival in the West, that's actually the primordial ego grasping. The second I am offended or insulted or threatened, fear rises. That's the actual manifestation of ego grasping. Because when you've realized emptiness, you wouldn't have that. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Microphone to this gentleman back there. I know, but they need it for the translator. Yes. Just press. The green light comes on. Okay. No, never mind. I'll repeat your question. Go on.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. Yes. Based on what I just said, I'm telling for him. Yes. 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 It must be, has to be. Yes, it has to be. I think I've heard the lamas, I'm not sure really, say that in some, tiny things, maybe karma's not personal. But I think if we think of karma logically, which is meant to be, then karma is personal. So there has to be some relationship between us from the past where, I've been harmed by her in the past. There has to be. I think there has to be karma there. It's no accident that I run over her. Has to be. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I think it's reasonable to think that. Yep. What else, folks? Pardon? There's still no intention, is there?
There's still no intention?
There's no intention. It doesn't mean I wasn't irresponsible. It doesn't mean I shouldn't feel a sense of responsibility and get a learning from this. I mean, there's a friend of mine in prison, an amazing guy who's now out of prison actually in California. He killed 2 people driving while he was drunk. He didn't intend to kill them, so there wasn't the karma of killing. He didn't create the karma of killing, even though people died because he was drunk. But he got such a lesson from this. He became a Buddhist as a result of this. He vowed never to harm another living being. It was a huge wake-up call for him. But the point is, I remember Geshe Sopa saying, even if you're like some of the Tibetans who were imprisoned, were forced to kill. He said even then, even if you do kill and you know you're killing but you don't want to kill, you don't create the strong karma of killing. Because everything comes down. It's not meant to be getting away with anything. It's whatever is in your mind is the karma you create. So clearly, being drunk and irresponsible and completely following your own attachment and having no conscience and no awareness that you're going to harm many sentient beings, that's all there. Because then that's how most of us harm each other. We're ignorant much of the time, But literally, if there's no intention, there's no intention. It doesn't mean there's no other karmic result, but intention is the major one, Really, it's huge.
Conscious. The person was not conscious because he was drunk. So
what's the point? What's the question?
Well, there was no intention because he was drunk. He was not conscious. It was
That's not the
a
point.
conscious act.
No, you can still be drunk and want to kill somebody. He just didn't want to kill somebody.
Okay, well, in that instance,
In this
case,
instance, they were unconscious, not aware of what they were doing. But there was no intention is the point. Yeah.
Clear my doubt. But even they don't have the intention in that case, it's still they have a result for that karma he creates.
No, if there is no...
It's lesser. It's lesser. O sea, it's not...
I'm not sure. We just got to think about it logically.
Because every action has a result.
But that's not an action if there's no intention. Action means
intention.
But action is intention. The real meaning of action is intention. So it's exactly right. If there's no intention, there's no result. You're dead right. You just proved it.
But most of the time, we have no intention when we...
That's not true, is what we're saying.
Okay.
Most of the time, we are instinctively killing, instinctively lying, instinctively following attachment every second. There is an intention. Otherwise, my hand would not go out to the cake. My hand would stay here. So intention, this is the thing. What's his name? Alex Berzin said it's like a joke to call it intention because it seems too rational. It's more like an urge, and that's how much of what we're doing is instinctive. We're born fully programmed with most of our instincts. All the animals, we say, oh, that's instinct. It's because it's completely ingrained habit from having done it before. So the mind just runs to it like a magnet. When you do an action, for an action to be a complete action, for example, to kill that mouse in the kitchen, you have to have the intention to kill. There has to be the mouse. You do the action, the mouse dies, and it dies before you. That's what's called a complete action. And then you start to unpack intention. Under intention, the major piece that determines the character of that action you did as to whether it's negative or positive is the motivation. So you might have killed the mouse because you're really attached to eat mouse legs for lunch. So you kill it very nicely, don't you? Fishermen don't have anger towards fish, but they're totally attached. So then that's one character of a negative action. But you might have rage for mice, or you might like to torture the mouse. So that makes it 1,000,000 times worse when you get incredible pleasure from seeing the suffering of the mouse. So there's many factors that play a big role in the karma you create, which is coming from intention. Because if there's no intention, there can't be motivation. If there's no motivation, there can't be the happiness when you see it die. Unless, of course, you kill it first and didn't realize, and then you say, oh, I'm so happy I killed the mouse. Then, of course, there's heavy negative karma. Do you see? But so much of what we do that we say is instinctive, liking to go fishing, liking to eat this food, wanting that one, lying, crying, stealing, killing, having sex, they're just practiced habits, you know, and therefore actually intentional. Every single second intentional. Otherwise, you know, your hand would leave the cake in the plate. But it's as if we have no intention. When you're really eating out of greed, you don't even remember you had you know, oh, did I eat that cake or not? Because there's no awareness. But when your hand went out, it definitely was intentional. Your hand would have stayed here otherwise. It's got no power of its own, the hand. You understand? But most of it is practiced, and that's what makes it extra, extra heavy. Habit is one of the big ones that makes it heavy, and that's why we don't even know we killed the mosquito. But we did. There was an intention, and it was all habit, just instinctive. And that's how much of our karma. As they say, the Lamas say, we are propelled by the force of our past karma, our past programming, you know. It's as if there's no intention. So in that sense, it's right, it's underneath, it's instinctive, you know. But if there is no intention, there is no intention. You stand on the mouse and you don't even know. And that's many of our actions. We're killing creatures all the time and we're not intending to. It doesn't mean we should keep doing it. We should become much more conscious and aware, you know. Out of ignorance, we do so much to harm sentient beings. And it really does depend. There's so many different things, you know. I always quote this one, my friend Max, who's a monk, an Australian monk in Dharamsala, and his family were one of the richest butcher companies in Australia. He didn't kill anything. He never killed a living being. He didn't work for the business, but all his millions of dollars came from the death of millions of creatures. And Lama Yeshe, when he became a monk, Lama Yeshe said to him, you never touch meat, you know, because of the heavy relationship with killing, because he had a connection with killing, even though he himself hadn't killed. But then, very interestingly, when he worked for years and years for the Dharma centers, Lama then said to him, you've purified that karma, now you can eat meat. It's okay if you want to. I think he never did. But it's interesting, whole view of it, you know. It's an interesting view. So, okay.
Another question.
Yeah, where? Yes.
My understanding of a Hinayana motivation is that every action you do is to obtain enlightenment for yourself,
Yeah,
for your
it's
sake.
renunciation, basically. I'm sick of
It's
suffering, I'm
renunciation.
exhausted, I know the causes, so I'm going to stop negative karma. It's renunciation, is their motivation.
You do it for
That's their
yourself.
motivation.
And in the
renunciation.
Mahayana, it's like everything you do, you do it for the sake of obtaining enlightenment for
Well,
others, for your and
Renunciation
for you
is the motive. Yeah, another way to say it. Renunciation. One, I'm sick of suffering. I know the causes. Therefore, I must stop creating the causes, and I must get the hell out of samsara. That's the Hinayana motivation. The Mahayana motivation is bodhicitta. I must continue to benefit sentient beings, and I must never give up becoming a Buddha. So, yeah,
So
another
the
way of
question,
saying it.
so the question is, can a Hinayana person with a Hinayana motivation have the same realization of emptiness as a
No,
Mahayana?
that's the point.
And what's the difference?
The difference is it's mixed with bodhicitta. It's got this much more power, apparently. Still the emptiness is there, but it's still, they still say there's a level of that self-centeredness because you don't have that great compassion. When you see the suffering of others, it's beyond unbearable. And finally, when you become a Buddha, you have this, the emptiness mixed with the bodhicitta is so much more profound that you now have no longer a sense of subject-object, no longer a sense of separateness, which you still have, even though you've realized emptiness and are out of samsara, apparently. The bodhicitta gives it this enormous, much more power and removes these subtle obscurations.
So it's like different levels of realizing emptiness?
It seems to be, yeah.
Okay.
The emptiness that's realized mixed with bodhicitta, which causes Buddhahood.
Okay.
And then there's the emptiness that you realize that gets you out of samsara, but still causes you to go into bliss, but not to care enough for other sentient beings. It has to be. There's a quality that's different, they say, and that's because of bodhicitta. Yeah.
Okay.
Huh?
I have a question. So a person in Hinayana or trying to practice Hinayana would never think for the betterment of the other people, of sentient beings?
The difference is like this. We discussed this last week.
Would that be that dark division?
No. The difference is this. This is talking about technically. You've got, okay. So you're on the Hinayana path, and your goal is motivated by renunciation of samsara, which has two parts. One, you are completely exhausted by the disgustingness of the suffering of samsara, but you know the causes, which is karma and delusion. So you're motivated to therefore you know the cause of suffering, you're sick of suffering, so therefore you stop the causes, which is stop the delusions, stop harming others, realize emptiness. And so when you realize emptiness in that life, let's say, every day, every life, your motivation is, I must get out of samsara, I must quit suffering, I must quit suffering. So when you realize emptiness in that life and you've achieved your own nirvana, at some life you will achieve it, okay, if that's your goal. Now in that life, when you've completely rid yourself of the delusion of ego grasping, what are you going to have left? What will be in your mind left? Once you've removed delusions, what will be left in your mind? No, anybody, the same. Everybody the same. If you've removed all delusions from your mind, ego grasping, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, neurosis, if you've removed all those from your mind, what would there be left in your mind? So what's words for those? What are the names given to those states of mind?
Bliss.
No, darling, no. Say the words. Thank you. So simple. Compassion and love and all the others. So you're a Hinayana practitioner. You want to get the hell out of samsara. You've realized your own nirvana in that particular life. So what is left in your mind is infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite kindness, infinite generosity. Yeah, you agree? What else is there? You agree? But what happens is this. Because your motivation from life after life after life has been, I must get the hell out of samsara, when you die, and also you experience, as Veronica said, there'll be incredible bliss. It's your natural state. You'll be blissful, loving, compassionate, but your motivation has been to get out of samsara. So when you die, that compassion you have, which is incredible, is overridden by your bliss and your motivation, and it causes you to stop being reborn. You go into bliss. You stop being reborn, even though you have phenomenal compassion. You with me? So you've got phenomenal compassion. Now, the difference is the Bodhisattva, a Mahayana practitioner, going through the same stages, renunciation, disgusting samsara, I must get out of samsara, but their motivation is, I must become a Buddha. That's their goal, not just I must get out of samsara. So in that life, you might even have the same realization as the Hinayana practitioner. You've achieved the path of seeing, you've had a direct insight into emptiness, you eventually remove a few more obstacles, and you don't need to be reborn. You don't need to be. With me? But you will be. Why? Because when you die, your bliss is overridden by your compassion. What's the word? Overridden. Overridden. Your compassion overrides your bliss. The Bodhisattva, the Mahayana, the Hinayana one, his bliss overrides his compassion, and he zaps off. But the point I'm getting to is very simple, technical point. The level of compassion of the Bodhisattva, the first level of compassion which the Hinayana has, is called compassion. You see suffering and it's unbearable. But the next one is the point. It's called great compassion. And that's the unique one of the Bodhisattva, and that says, what can I do to help? That's the one the Bodhisattva has. And that, what can I do, which becomes it's my job, and if I don't do it, who will? That's the unique characteristic of the compassion of the Bodhisattva that causes you to then only want to take more rebirths because the suffering of others is unbearable. So without great compassion, you're a Hinayana practitioner. With great compassion, which is the one of what can I do, that's the Mahayana compassion. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's the one that keeps you going. You don't need to. And eventually, even the lowest level Bodhisattva, already has the capacity to manifest their own mind in 100 forms simultaneously in different worlds to benefit sentient beings. And as you progress up the 10 bhumis, by the time you become a Buddha, literally, you are capable, because of your phenomenal compassion, your phenomenal wisdom, and your phenomenal power, the 3 characteristics of an enlightened being, you have the capacity effortlessly to manifest your mind in trillions of forms simultaneously throughout the universes for the sake of sentient beings. Hinayana practitioners just zap into bliss. So that's compelled by this immense compassion, which is fed by the more profound realization of emptiness, and that emptiness is informed by that incredible compassion that gives it this massive boost. And they say the unique characteristic of the Buddha, when you've finally achieved Buddhahood, is this no longer subject-object, no longer sense of a separate self, which is unique to the Buddha. And that Hinayana does not have. So emptiness, way more to go, in other words. Yeah. All these wonderful stories you hear about the Bodhisattvas, you know, and the Buddhas manifesting to benefit sentient beings. And that's what we've got to remember. And when you read all those sutras, you get a feeling for it, all these millions of Buddhas flying around space, manifesting here and there in universes. You hear it all the time, Subhuti and the other fellows going off to other world systems, and the billions of Buddhas, and then coming back with their stories. I mean, it's like fairyland, isn't it, you know? You read those sutras. That's all the Buddhas, that's what they are, that's what they say, you know? And you read the King of Prayers. Every atom, there's millions of Buddhas, and every million of worldviews, blah, blah, blah. It's like an insane level of reality. And this is the capability of a Buddha, is to manifest in whatever forms are necessary. So there's this lovely story. I know Lama Zopa told this story. So when we hear about His Holiness, for example, we think, oh, isn't he a Buddha? Isn't he nice? This nice monk sitting there in his bed meditating, you know, one person. It's like a joke. If he is a Buddha, if he is what they say he is, then the Dalai Lama is merely a manifestation of that Buddha mind. It's not as if he's the Dalai Lama who then manifests to help others. It's the Buddha's mind. He's a Buddha mind, the Dharmakaya, manifesting in trillions of forms continuously to help sentient beings. So there's a very nice story Rinpoche told in the early 60s when the Tibetans had come from, you know, they were based in Dharamsala. And of course the main thing, the most urgent thing for all the lamas, for His Holiness and all the holy lamas, was to get some monasteries built so they could pass on the knowledge to the, you know, these knowledge holders. That word tenzin in Tibetan, a lovely word, knowledge holders. The actual realized beings passing on the knowledge to the younger ones so they can continue the oral lineage of the teachings. Otherwise it would die out and then Buddhism would be dead, you know. And so there was this enormous sense of urgency to get land to build the monasteries. And that's what they were. So the Indian government, out of incredible kindness, offered hundreds of thousands of acres of all that forest land down south, you know, where all the monasteries are now. Like these entire Tibetan cities are down there now. And so anyway, the story goes, His Holiness had sent down his particular minister to Delhi, where the Indian government is, to meet with the appropriate Indian minister in these negotiations for this land, you know. And so Indian bureaucracy being the way it was, you know, the Tibetan fellow got down there, but he just couldn't get a meeting. He got so frustrated. So he went back up to Dharamsala, and he got, you know, was frustrated, told His Holiness, and His Holiness said, don't worry, it'll be okay, it'll be cool. You go back right down now to Delhi. So he took the train, went back down to Delhi, and he got a meeting with he got into the office of the Indian minister, and that particular day, the Indian minister's little boy was in the office with his daddy. So he was talking to the Tibetan minister, and the little boy expressed the wish for a dog. And so the Tibetan said, oh, I'll get you a dog, you know, grease the wheels and make things happen. So he went outside, and there was this Indian sadhu with his little dog. So can I buy your dog? Yes. So he gets the dog, comes in, gives it to the little Indian boy. He goes to his daddy. Daddy's happy. Everyone's happy. And everything works, you know. So in other words, so anyway, as Lama Zopa said, the sadhu and the dog were manifestations of the Dalai Lama's mind. And this is the point. This is what the Buddhas, the holy beings, the Dharmakaya, which is the name of the absolute Buddha, absolute Guru, Buddha mind pervading the universe, full of wisdom, full of compassion, effortlessly capable of manifesting in trillions of rupakayas, form bodies, continuously, unceasingly through all the realms of existence, in the hells, and the animals, and the spirits, as the humans, as the insects, as the slugs, as the terrorists, as the wackos. This is what the Buddha's doing, you know. So it's more than merely going to liberation. It seems obviously, outrageously, insanely more huge. Therefore, the realizations, the realization of emptiness has to be fed by this bodhicitta. That's what gives so much power to the Buddha's mind, you know. And the Tibetans have a saying, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. And the fact is, if you saw that dog, believe me, it would look like a dog. It would eat like a dog. It would pee like a dog. It would die like a dog, but it is not a dog. It's the Buddha's mind play acting as a dog. And it wouldn't sort of be like a holy dog. We all think, oh, our cat and our dogs are so special because they like to meditate with us. There must be little meditators. Forget it. They're just attached, that's all. Don't worry about it. They like the peaceful feeling because you're not shouting at them. So, you know, a dog that's the Buddha, like the Dalai Lama, we can't see a Buddha. It's like it's insulting to say, oh, yeah, he's a Buddha. We don't know. Okay, we have confidence, we have faith, we pray. But to say that you know he's a Buddha is completely insane. You're not clairvoyant. And he looks like a human. Okay, you can tell he looks like a nice human. But excuse me, if you saw Yamantaka manifesting as a human, he would not look like a nice human. He would kill you. And he wouldn't kill you with a wink while he has his halo on, saying, I'm really Yamantaka trying to do it for your benefit. No. Did you hear that, you people? You didn't laugh. You're supposed to laugh at me. You didn't laugh, not one of you. Excuse me. But did you hear what I said? We love all the nice stories. We see the pictures in Yamantaka. Oh, wow, the wrathful Buddhas, you know. Excuse me. Someone even looks mean at you, you get upset. Come on. So who knows who the Buddha is? So there's a dog, you know. There's no way in the universe you'll ever know it's not a dog. Because this is what the Buddhas do. They manifest in a form that's suitable for our minds, you know. And they're doing it all the time, non-stop. And of course, if we see our guru as the Buddha, then our guru, it means manifesting all the time for our benefit. That enemy, that's the guru manifesting for your benefit. That, you know, that cockroach that you want to kill, how do you know it's not your guru manifesting to help you learn? So really you've got to use any technique we can to help change our minds, you know. And this is all, and this actually, to think about emptiness, forget Tantra if you can't understand emptiness. Forget the Bodhisattva path if you can't get emptiness. Honestly, the Bodhisattva path is insane. Forget Tantra. The Buddha, you know, that a being, a Bodhisattva, can harm a sentient being motivated by bodhicitta. In our world, this concept does not exist. So to even understand how that's possible, you have to have an understanding of emptiness, at least intellectually, to have a sense that things aren't existing as they appear. This has to be. That we can't see minds, you know, that it is a possibility that a person could have bodhicitta and no ego and genuinely see the karmic consequences for you if you did something, and so to harm you, to stop you from doing it, is a perfect action. Even this action of Lama Yeshe, one time in Courtin Monastery. Our friend Harry, who's a meditator, an American fellow, he was helping one of the monks at Courtin, who kind of like was crazy, you know. And he told Lama he'd found a doctor to help. And Harry, you know, his Lama is Lama Yeshe, it's his guru. So Lama basically said to Harry, just leave it, don't do anything. He didn't explain himself. So Harry, having faith in Lama, didn't help. And the guy went back up to the mountains and then died. That sounds kind of heavy, doesn't it? It sounds like as if Lama Yeshe didn't care. But Harry had faith in Lama. So anyway, Lama Lundup, who was the abbot at the time at Courtin Monastery, he explained to Harry what was happening. He said, because of Lama Yeshe's clairvoyance, and that's low-level realization, believe me, we've all had clairvoyance in countless lives, Buddha says. And Buddha often says, too, we can't really begin to benefit sentient beings until we have clairvoyance, which means you've got to see the past. You've got to understand the person's mind, their karma, their delusions, and know exactly how to help them. And you really can't do that until you've got clairvoyance. So there's Lama Yeshe. He can see, Lama Lundup explained to Harry, the karmic causes of this particular sickness. And if he'd gotten better in this life, he would have been fine, had a very nice life. But he wouldn't have finished the heavy karma that he created in the past. And so his next life would be much worse suffering. So, out of Lama's incredible kindness and his wisdom, and the fact is, as His Holiness says, compassion's not enough. You've got to have wisdom. And indeed, that includes clairvoyance. He could see that if he continued to be sick, he went back up to the mountains apparently. Harry said he died, and he's sick, and he died a very happy death. That's the way he completed the karma. Next life, fantastic. Now, who's got that kind of wisdom? And this is our trouble, because we've got so much attachment. And when we realize that this frantic way that attachment informs even our good actions, because we're so driven by our own junky craving to get everything that attachment wants. And attachment is a junkie for wanting only the nice things. Attachment wants everything to be nice. That's why we can't stand it when the alcoholic brother suffers and when the bad things happen. It's because our attachment doesn't, it stops us from having the courage of the compassion of the bodhisattva that is bearing the suffering and is able to see it and never gives up trying to help. But attachment is such a junkie. We wish it would go away. That's why we kill all our animals and call it putting them down, putting them to sleep. That's why we want to kill our grandma, because we can't stand the suffering. It's because we can't stand the suffering. Our attachment can't stand the suffering. So to be a bodhisattva and to have wisdom is fearless. Such courage, to do what looks like the opposite to what the world would do. To actually allow this monk to be sick, knowing in this way he would purify all that karma and in fact have a much more blissful future life. That's really brave. And that takes courage and wisdom. This is the bodhisattva, You can't see. The story even of the bodhisattva, the previous life of the Buddha, as a captain or something on a boat of 500 merchants. This story they always use as an example from the Mahayana point of view, how not only didn't he create negative karma, it hastened his Buddhahood. And so the story goes, like you've all heard it, it's in the Lam Rim, they all talk it. The story is that this captain, who was a bodhisattva, a previous life of Shakyamuni Buddha, obviously highly realized already, not a Buddha yet, but highly realized, gone beyond delusions, renunciation, clairvoyance, total understanding of people's minds and their karma, realized emptiness, and, the point, phenomenal compassion and bodhicitta. So he sees with his clairvoyance one of these 500 merchants is going to kill everybody and take everything for himself. So the story is that the Buddha, his compassion for that fellow, forget the other 499 people, the victims, but his compassion for the criminal was so enormous, it was so unbearable to him to think that he would suffer for countless eons in the hell realms, that he thought, rather me than him. He said he figured the only way to stop him from doing it was to kill him, and he decided he would rather go to the hell realms. This is in other words the ultimate of Tonglen, rather me than him. He couldn't bear the thought of his suffering. Now this is where it's interesting interpretations. Lama Zopa says this in one of his books, that the Hinayana interpretation of this is that there was still some negativity, because in the Hinayana view, that negativity is still, negative karma is still negative. Killing has still got some negativity to it. It's a natural negativity. And because no way it couldn't be some negativity. Even though his bodhicitta was huge, they accept that. And he would have to have some result. But according to the Mahayana teaching, not only was it not negative, but actually it hastened his Buddhahood. That level of unbelievable compassion hastened his own Buddhahood. So from that perspective, there was not an atom of negativity. And there was an intention, but his motivation, and this is the key about motivation. In the simple example of the mouse, even ordinary people, intention to kill, mouse is there, do the action, mouse is dead. Easy. Veronica's got a mouse. Intention, she sees the mouse, she decides to kill, the mouse is there, she kills it, the mouse is dead. It looks the same on the outside, but look at the one component that makes the masses of difference. In my mind, there's anger, aversion, and the wish to harm the mouse. In Veronica's mind, let's say, like a lot of people in the West, let's just pretend she's not a Buddhist, her motivation is, oh my God, look at that suffering. It is unbearable. I must kill the mouse to help it stop suffering, which is the typical thing for us with euthanasia, of all our creatures, of all our animals, of all our grandmas and grandpas. What are we trying to do? So she means well, even though it's motivated also by attachment. Her attachment is polluting her compassion, and her ignorance of karma and having no clairvoyance is polluting that compassion. But nevertheless, she did not create negative karma. The poor mouse might have gone to the hell realms. Much worse life. But because of that motivation, this is the Mahayana one, the power of motivation, which doesn't mean you should run around wanting to kill all the mouse because you want to help them. That's stupid. Back off and just don't kill, But the motivation is the key thing, and this is why ordinary daily activity, eating, sleeping, going to the toilet, having sex and drugs and rock and roll, are in their nature delusion. In their nature, they are samsaric actions. In their nature, they will cause you to go to the lower realms. This is not meant to be hysterical. It's just technically true. This is why we don't have a choice but to put bodhicitta in. We should be frantic with worry that we're not remembering bodhicitta every second. We have to do it. We've got to have a choice for our own sake. For our own sake. Forget sentient beings. We have to remember the motivation. Change the motivation for eating, sleeping, having sex, going to the toilet, dressing in your clothes, going to work, making money, being kind to people. Change the motivation. Put it in there. Bodhicitta. Practice it. Think it. This is what transforms all these samsaric actions. The only other option, if you're practicing the Hinayana path, is you've got no choice but to give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll, take an ordination, and go to the mountains. There's no other way to get out of samsara. But the bodhicitta is the phenomenal tool that our lamas are giving us. This is dependent arising. This proves there is no negative action from its own side. It proves it. Because you change one piece of the object, this object called killing, one piece of it, the motivation, that changes, the whole thing is changed. This is emptiness, and it's cause and effect. And it's bodhicitta. It's up to us to remember. It's like learning a new script to live our life. Just learn the script and keep repeating it. Believe me, you fake it till you make it. This is how you become a Buddha. I think also we're running out. How many days have we got left next week? Few, 3, 2, 4. Three teaching nights. Okay. So was any one of those days going to be karma and purification? No? It's true. Yeah, right. Okay, we could do, yeah, but it depends on who's coming. I think I'd like to talk about that now. Is that okay? Okay, just a remind. Every year we do the same things. I feel like a fraud. I keep talking about the same things every year, you know, but what else can we talk about? No? It's all right, is it? Oh, is it? There you go. Is it really? Oh, really? And your maybe that's your mind. Her mind has definitely changed. I think your minds have become sweeter. It proves it's very hard to pin it down, isn't it? Can you accept that your minds have changed also? No, I mean maybe just you got more kindness. You've developed more compassion and kindness. There you go. How fascinating, isn't it? Okay, let's talk about karma and purification. There. Really? There you go. There you go. Okay. Let's talk about then. Well, we're continuing to talk about karma because karma is intention, and intention is what runs the universe. Our intentions are what produce all our experiences. So it's pretty much about dependent arising. So this is a practice that we all know about, the 4 opponent powers. We've all learned it. Our lamas praise it, you know. And as Lama Zopa likes to say, and I quote him a lot, we are insane not to do this every day. And this, again, logical, dependent arising reasons. Because if, as Buddha is saying, everything that we experience, all our tendencies, the people we meet, how they see us, how they treat us, the money not coming, the money coming, the husband cheating on me, the rats in the house, the cockroaches eating in my silverware drawer, whatever the karma is, if that is the fruit of what I have done, then obviously regretting those things which ripen as suffering, and indeed rejoicing in the things that ripen as happiness, and then changing my decisions to do this and that and not do this and this, then this is what will change my experiences, change my life, change what happens to me. Because it's dependent arising. It's everything to do with causes and conditions. But because we're so used to believing it's all out there, and then we think, oh, you know, how can I say I will never kill? I don't know if I have to kill tomorrow, because we assume the cockroaches will keep coming. Well, don't be surprised if you regret killing cockroaches. If you have compassion for the cockroaches, these are the steps. If you purify killing the cockroaches, and if you vow never to kill the cockroaches again, don't be surprised the cockroaches will stop coming. It's logic. The four opponent powers is the way to program our mind and create new experiences. So, you know, for example, the tragedy of not purifying is this. So here's the little fisherman, a little boy. If you look at the 4 ways that karma ripened, he had lots of good karma. First, he got a human birth, a really good human birth. Second, he had excellent experiences, a good mummy, a good daddy, a good environmental karma. He had good tendencies. He was generous, kind, intelligent. He had money in the bank. He had, you know, family. Everything was so good. So many good results of much virtue. But like a lot of people on this human earth, the tragedy is one of his tendencies was a tendency to kill. And in his case, it ripened the moment he met fishing. He was like 5 years old, little boy. The second he saw fishing, it was like he recognized it. What happened is this. Okay, what happened? It would have triggered the karmic instinct in his mind, the imprint, the habit of killing. And where did that come from? From having killed in the past. And this is the point. The habit to kill is the residual result of the fully ripened result in the past of killing, which would have been rebirth in the lower realms. So eventually that ran out. He finished the karma of the lower realms. But because, and this is the point, he didn't purify the habit to kill, and indeed in his case, he didn't purify the experience of being killed by doing the 4 opponent powers, which we're going to talk about, he then had he woke up in this life, met fishing, recognized it, ran like a magnet, attachment came, it made it look divine, it caused him to have good feelings, and logically in our ordinary samsaric world, whatever causes a good feeling, we logically think that the thing that you saw must have caused it. So logically for him, fishing looked good, attachment made it look good, attachment triggered a good feeling in his body. Whatever gives you a good feeling, and in his case fishing, the logic is, oh well, fishing must be good, it made me feel good, so he kept doing the fishing. This is the tragedy of samsara. This is how we perpetuate our own samsara every single day. So because he'd been in the lower realms, he finished the main karma, but the tragedy is he didn't regret it, and he didn't vow not to kill again. So he had the residual result, and that's the tragedy. Most humans, been in the lower realms, get born again, good human life, money in the bank, good friends, good this, good that, intelligent, kind, but the tendency to kill. And what do? Straight down to the lower realms again. Because you don't do the 4 opponent powers. And the thing is, you listen to these 4 opponent powers, and it's not religion, it is practical psychology. Karma is done by the mind, then purifying it is done by the mind. As Lama Yeshe says, we create negativity with our minds, so we transform it, we purify it by creating positivity with our minds. So it's a practice that we just don't have a choice to do, you know. I mean, the thing is, if we have received an empowerment, for example, from our lamas to do Vajrasattva, and we get a commitment to do 21 mantras, we'll go, oh yeah, I did my 21 mantras. I did my Vajrasattva, we say. But if you don't do the other 3 steps, you're missing the point. You didn't do the whole practice, because the whole practice, as Lama Tsongkhapa says in his Songs of Experience, you know, the Lam Rim, and all the Lam Rim, is these 4 steps, the 4 opponent powers. It's huge. When we understand this, it's huge. We'd feel sad not to do it every day. We're insane not to do it every day, according to Lama Zopa. Okay, so an easy way to remember the 4 is the 4 R's, you know, certainly in English. The first is regret. The second is reliance. The third is the remedy, and the 4th is resolve. It's an easy way to remember. So we'll go through the 4 and look at them logically. See the logical, psychological reasonableness of them, you know. and how it's necessary to do. And crucially, how each of these four purifies each of the four ways that karma ripens. So the first one, regret, is very specific. We really need to unpack this carefully. We talked on the first and second day, and yesterday I think a little bit as well. Because we all have this dualistic view of being an innocent victim who was created by somebody else, either mummy or daddy or God, then we have this dualistic view of morality, which is that morality is information from on high that someone imposes on me. And you check this. This is why we are desperately want to be seen by mummy to be a good girl, to do what mummy said. But if she says don't do something and we do it, well, what do? We're desperate to hide, aren't we? We want to get away with it. If mummy didn't see us do it, we think we got away with it. Well, that shows the naive, childish view of morality we have. In other words, we have no sense, the Buddha's view of morality is that whatever we do that's called negative, which is an intentional action motivated by a delusion, and then carried out with our body and speech, that will necessarily ripen as my future suffering. This is the logic, the simple logic of Buddha's view of reality, okay? So in other words, whatever I do that's negative will ripen as my suffering. And indeed, whatever I do that's virtuous, which is an intentional decision to do something to help others, motivated by virtue, carried out by my body and speech, that will necessarily leave seeds in my mind that will ripen as my future happiness. So this simple logic brings unbelievable accountability, but it just takes time because we have this dualistic view of morality being imposed upon us. And that is indeed the Christian teaching. I'm not criticizing it, but that's exactly what it is. That in fact, a sin, by definition, is when you do what God said not to do. That's what makes it a sin. And this is a very major point. We have the same view in the West, in the modern world, in samsara. When the law says don't do that. So we all know, as long as the law doesn't see us do it, I got away with that. This is how we think of morality. Well, that's about as stupid as thinking when you go to your doctor and she says don't smoke, you might get cancer. And then you go home and you go, my doctor's not here, I won't get cancer. I don't think so. How naive, how bizarre, But we understand it when it comes to material things, to the food we eat, the things we do. We know logically there are consequences to me of whatever I do. And we don't get offended when the doctor tells us not to smoke. We don't say, who do you think you are telling me what to do? And then we don't think that cancer is a punishment that the doctor gives. But that's our view of morality. It's very, very bizarre. It's very infantile. So the Buddha's view is it's a natural law. What a negative action is by definition is one that harms another. And you create a negative action, even if you do it. But if there's no intention, you don't do, like I'm saying. There's got to be the intention and the motivation. That's what informs the action and causes it to be negative, or indeed positive, if it's a virtue. It's a natural law. It's logical. So we must become accountable. We don't have a choice. And this is why it's really hard, the one, let's say, of killing. Especially you live in culture like here, where you've got these creatures, in the steamy weather. It's very hard for us. We all the time are looking desperately for ways to get away with killing the cockroaches. But is it okay if this and this and this? And is it okay because of this? It's not the point. It's like saying, to your doctor, can you please give me permission to smoke? Isn't it okay because I can't help it? I don't care, Smoking brings results. Well, this is what makes it tough for us. This is what makes it so hard, because we can't see the consequences. I mean, we have to have confidence in Buddha's teachings. It's a big ask. Who would have thought that if you practice killing, you'd be born as a dog? I mean, what a big shock, Who would have thought that? Not to mention anything else. Forget hell realms. It sounds so in the sky to us, So to take it seriously as a presentation of Buddha's own direct findings from his own direct experience and taking it as our hypothesis really does demand that you take it seriously, not just believe in it. I never use that word. I never say I believe in Buddhism. I never say that word. I say I take it as my working hypothesis. That forces me to grow up and be responsible. That means I've got to put my money where my mouth is. It must. I must. Otherwise, you're completely phony. So, regret. is not guilt. That's the consequence. Guilt is the symptom of this dualistic view of morality. So as His Holiness was asked one time, I always quote this, it's very sweet. What is the difference between guilt and regret? And it was so simple how he put it. He said, regret is a guilt, the one we know so well. You look in the past and you say, I did this, I did that, I did this, and then you say, and I'm a bad person. Well, we are very familiar with this. We assume that's logic. We never question it. We never look into it. We never try to change it. We just assume it's normal. But you listen to it. That is what it's called anger, actually. It's anger, and you're the object. Because listen to anger. You did this, you did that, and you did this, and you're a bad person. It's exactly the same state of mind, except you're the object. So it's a heavy-duty delusion. Guilt is no responsibility there. It's a childish, typical ego view. It's like based on self-pity, and actually guilt is internalizing what other people say you shouldn't do. You just get ahead of the game and say you did it already. You know, instead of people blaming you, you blame yourself. It's really like, it's useless. It's a useless, negative, destructive, sad state of mind. So then as His Holiness said, and we have to cultivate this view, it's so simple. He says regret, the first part is exactly the same. You say, in the past, I did do that, I did kill, I did cheat, I did lie. You say that, definite, but you change your conclusion. Then you say, what can I do about it? And that's grown up. That's accountability. And of course, so that's why they always use the analogy, the Lamas use the analogy of having just eaten poison. No one has to prove to you that you should go, oh my God, what an idiot, I've just eaten poison. Quick, where's the doctor? No one has to teach you that. You just don't sit there going, oh, I ate poison, I'm such a bad person. And you get sicker and sicker every day, and you keep saying, I'm such a bad person. I don't think so. You'd be completely alert to the horror of the consequences of the sickness that you get, because we understand that eating poison brings me suffering. That's the view of morality, that killing will bring me suffering, lying will bring me suffering, depression brings me suffering, anger brings me suffering, jealousy brings me suffering. When we can have this view, we'll be so grown up, so adult, so on the alert, so mature, so self-respectful. It'll be incredible. But look at the way we are now with our delusions. We're like sinking into the misery of the self-pity. And self-pity is where there's no accountability. Self-pity or victim is everyone does it to me. It's not my fault. I can't help it. It's too painful for us, that's why, to look at it, you know. So regret takes courage. It means owning responsibility. I did do it. And join the club, people. We're all deluded. So the courage to know that I did do it. I did kill, lie, steal. You go through all the 10 non-virtues. You should do the lot, you know. I killed. Not just now, but since beginningless time. As an animal especially, the Buddhists say, we kill trillions of sentient beings. Look at a whale. One big fat whale that lasts a long time opens its big, big mouth for one mouthful of one breakfast, and apparently 40 billion little creatures go in. Humans can't touch that, you know. One mouthful of one breakfast for one whale on one day. So they're killing just naturally. That's what they do. This is the tragedy of animal rebirth. Much more suffering, and that's where we do the most harm. You suffer more in the other realms, but you do the most harm as an animal. And why? Because of delusions, because of ego, because of fear, because of suffering. It's like unbearable. Lama Zopa, I remember years ago I heard this. He said, if you could just for a few moments have a direct experience of the mind of your cute little dog, the suffering of its mind would be so overwhelming, you'd never want to sleep again to waste this precious human rebirth. So it's way to go. We don't see that when we see our dog. The only time we see our dog suffer when it's old and sick or someone beats it. We just think it's cute. This just shows our deluded mind. We don't see suffering, you know. We could analyze it and see it, I suppose. But to have that level of compassion, just having an experience of your dog's mind, of the intensity of its ignorance, of the ego grasping, the fear, the paranoia. It's interesting. Observation from a yogi, you know. So regret is your first step, and as Lama Zopa says, this is the most important. It's the doorway into the whole process. If you don't own the fact that you ate poison in your dinner, nothing will change. If you know, and this is what we do with our life. Our modes of operation now are guilt, and the consequences of this is just more misery, blame, or the worst one, denial. Oh, I ate poison. I'm such a bad person. That's guilt. How dare you? Who put poison in my dinner? That's blame. Like you're getting sicker by the minute. That's like suing Marlboro while you keep smoking, This is what we have. This is the view. Or there's poison in your dinner, Robina. No, there is not. That's denial, okay? These are three we do now. Because we can't bear, we don't know how to be accountable. Because we don't have responsibility. Because we're all dualistic and we blame everybody else. This is what ego does. It's just its nature. So it's painful and difficult and courageous to own responsibility. Just like you would if you discovered you'd eaten poison. And what causes you to rush to action is the recognition of the suffering consequences. And this is a big ask, because karma to us is very abstract. So, I remember in one of the teachings recently somewhere, a person talking about killing the cockroaches and how they just could not kill the cockroaches, and you have to kill the cockroaches, and you can't possibly have the cockroaches. And what am I going to do? What if I kill the cockroach? And I said, do you accept the view of karma in general? She said, yeah, sure. I said, well, have you heard of people, I said, who like, say, get violently ill if they eat a peanut? And she said, yes, she knew about people like that. And I said, if you were like this, it'd be true, wouldn't it, that you'd never in a million years eat a peanut, would you? Because why? Because you'll suffer. And she agreed. Well, I said, if we did take Buddha's teaching seriously and did take on board the hypothesis that every time I kill out of attachment or aversion, mostly when it's the cockroaches, we hate cockroaches. You're not killing them with compassion, believe me, out of loathing for these disgusting creatures. That's called anger, aversion. So I said, if every time you kill a cockroach, you got violently ill, would you kill cockroaches? She said, of course I wouldn't. I said, okay, we've got to grow up and think about it. It's not easy, because when we hear this, we keep hearing it as punishment. We keep hearing that someone's threatening me like a big stick. If you do this, I will punish you. That's how we think of morality. It's just the same as if your doctor, because of their knowledge, knows that you have a tendency to get cancer, so advises you, don't smoke, Robina, you'll get cancer. You don't blame them. You don't say, who do you think you are? This is why it's hard for us to think about, because we're so addicted to the dualistic view of morality that it's somebody else's laws that they're shoving down my throat. That's why we've got to think about it. We have got to think about it. We have no choice but to think about it, to take the courage to take responsibility for this view, because this is what being a Buddhist is. Karma is Buddha's view of the universe. It's a tough one. So forget compassion, Compassion is way in the future. We've got to have some recognition for ourselves. And the point again is, this first step of regret is the level of renunciation, which is the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim. This is the realization we've got to get. And we discussed this a few days ago. There are two components to renunciation that qualify it as renunciation. One is, I am sick of suffering. And remember, of course, suffering is intense for the Buddha. You've got the three kinds of suffering stated in the First Noble Truth, and that's way beyond what we think of as suffering. Even our happiness is nothing other than suffering. So it's really hard to even understand suffering. Forget about having renunciation of it. But we're talking here the grossest level of suffering, the unhappy results, Even this one is really tough for us. So the first part of renunciation is, I am fed up with suffering. But the second is the point. And that is, finally, I know why I'm suffering. My past karma and my delusions. And they both subsume down to the one, delusions. Ego grasping, attachment, anger, and the rest. It's not complicated. This is the main cause of any instant of any suffering I've ever had since beginningless time. So that's renunciation. That's renunciation. And that means it's like an enormous waking up for oneself. It's like saying compassion for yourself. It's a recognition that you created yourself. It's a recognition that you are in charge of your life. You're a grown-up. It's a huge one. To get renunciation would be like, you know, there's no way in the universe you want vomiting yet again. So you're going to not touch those peanuts with a 1,000,000-foot pole, because you now understand why you've been vomiting all these years, those ridiculous peanuts, which look so delicious. So that takes time for us, because we don't see immediately the suffering results, because we're addicted to our habits, you know. So it means we just have to listen and think of it carefully as a grown-up. It's not punishment. There's no one up there pulling the strings, Buddha says. He is not a creator. This is not a view he has made up. He is not punishing anybody. That's beyond bizarre in Buddhism. There is no view like that. No one punishes us. No one rewards us. It is we, ourself, I. It takes time to internalize this. It's a huge view. And this is just renunciation. First one, regret. So that's why when we do this practice at night, when we state these steps, we just don't go, oh yeah, I regret all my negative actions. It just feels like guilt. Or we think it's meant to be for compassion. We've missed the point of regret, which is for my sake. So we've got to speak it out. We've got to say, if you're going to go through the 10 non-virtues, you've got to say, you know what, Robina, I regret killing today, whatever, this life, and any killing I've ever done since beginning this time. Because why? Because you know what? Because I do not want the suffering consequences. I am fed up with suffering. I do not want the suffering consequences of killing. You've got to say that, because it makes it for your sake. And you go through the 10 non-virtues. Then, of course, if you've taken vows, the main one is, I regret having broken my pratimoksha vows. I regret any vow that I have broken or weakened. I regret breaking my bodhisattva vows. I regret breaking my tantric vows. I regret breaking my tantric commitments, the 19 commitments to the 5 Buddha families, to offer tsog twice a month if I've taken Mother Tantra in a group of men and women. These are commitments we have taken. We have taken a commitment to see ourselves as a deity morning, noon, and night. We have a commitment to carry a Dorjian bell on our person 24 hours a day, if it's not a picture, at least. We have commitments to do the 6-section Guru Yoga, which completes our commitment to do the 19 things of the 5 Buddha families. We have committed to the 18 root vows of the Bodhisattva. We have committed to the 14 root vows of the Tantra. We have committed to the 46 secondary Bodhisattva vows. We have committed to the 8 and 6 and 3 tantric vows. Those of us who have. So you'd better regret the ones you've broken. For our own sake. No one asked us to do it. We're grown-ups, you know. We're big girls now. We're big boys now. Regret. Very first step, necessary. Then we think, whom can I turn to give me the methods? I can clean up this ridiculous nonsense. Get myself the hell out of this samsara. Quit all this ridiculous suffering. Thank God for the Buddha. We turn to our doctor, the Buddha. So the second one is reliance. And this is where you think, God, where's the doctor? You know, now what's reliance? Well, the first part, there's 2 parts. The first part's refuge. So what's refuge? 2 parts. The first part, you've got to know that this is a decent doctor. And how are you going to find out? By checking up on her. Talking to their students, looking at their medicines, looking at their responses, looking at their reputation. You've got to have confidence the Buddha's a decent doctor. You don't turn to a doctor because she looks cute. It's just pathetic. You've got to have confidence. And look at the word confidence in Latin. Confide, with trust. Confidence. The Buddha is valid. You have to find out. I don't care how many people like the Buddha. You have to be confident. And then the second is that you've got to want their medicine. Why? Because you're sick of suffering. Natural. You know, if you've taken poison, let's say you haven't taken poison, and you're at a party and someone tells you about this amazing doctor in Tasmania, the bottom of Australia. When I'm in Australia, I talk about Iceland. When I'm in Iceland, I talk about Tasmania, but here we're in the middle, aren't we? So either way, it's pretty much the same. So there's this amazing Dr. Robina in Tasmania who has every antidote to every poison. She's incredible. You can't imagine. You go, because you don't want poison, okay? You haven't taken poison. You go, oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, really? Well, pass the sugar. Who cares? But now, look what happens when you've discovered you've eaten poison. Who was that doctor? Quick, where's where's the next Qantas flight? I'll take it first class. I'll hire an aeroplane. And you'll go all the way and you'll hang on every word they say. Will you not? So you've got to have a confidence in the Buddha, and you've got to have the wish, because you're sick of suffering and you do not want the suffering consequences. We're not talking compassion yet. For yourself, though, wake up to karma. Cause and effect, dependent arising. Buddha's view, his observation from his own mind, not a thing he made up. He's not speculating. He didn't make it up. It's not a big stick. He has observed it as true. So we're taking that as our hypothesis. That is our explanation for the universe. So taking this on board, we take it seriously, so we turn to the Buddha and use his methods. And so that's refuge. The first part is called refuge. So in this context, of course, all the lamas praise Vajrasattva as the best practice for this. So why? Okay, we should get context here of what the Buddha is. Well, actual Buddha is called Dharmakaya, Sanskrit, technically truth body. It just means omniscient mind, all-knowing, all-pervasive, all-clear, all-compassionate, all-wise, enlightened mind. Necessarily not physical, necessarily pervading wherever there is existence. How could the mind, which is not physical, which is finally unencumbered by all the junk, not be wherever there is existence? It's just natural. I know as a Catholic, I used to love the idea of God is everywhere. Same idea here, no different. But what good is that to peanuts like us? We're as thick as posts, you know? So out of enormous kindness, the Buddha mind, and this is since the Bodhisattva path, they're manifesting throughout the universes as Buddhas in bodies for our sake. That's the Rupakaya. Now there's many versions of the Rupakaya. For the point in the classic Hinayana level of the teachings, the Rupakaya form of the Buddha that is the form of Mr. Shakyamuni Buddha, the prince, the monk. And look at the monk aspect. It represents that level of the path, complete subduing of the body, speech, and mind. He is the manifestation of perfect morality, subdued body, speech, and mind. That's the form we can see. That's the form of the Buddha that we can see, which is the Dharmakaya, the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body, the Tulku in Tibetan. This is the form that regular Joes like you and me can communicate with. That's the form that Shakyamuni Buddha, and that's the one that is representing in the Hinayana, and there's one of them we can see. Now, you get the Mahayana, and from the perspective of Tantra, you've got the Bodhisattva aspect, the blissful light body, which is the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body, which is only visible in the meditations of the great yogis who have accessed their subtle mind. Ordinary people like you and me can't cognize those aspects. And here, if you take it like a big, one of those graphs, a family tree type thing, the Dharmakaya is at the top. Then you've got divided into two. The Nirmanakaya, Shakyamuni, for the sutra teachings. And then you've got over here, Vajradhara, or Dorji Chung in Tibetan. Vajradhara, blue, holding Dorji and bell, like this, He's the main tantric Buddha, the main aspect of the Rupakaya, called the Dharma, called the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body, the subtle light body, in the Bodhisattva aspect, as they call it, subtle light body. And he is the personification of that. I remember asking Lama Yeshe, always love this story. Asked Lama Yeshe, who is Vajradhara Lama? I used to keep reading, when I first met the Dharma, I kept reading his name, and I liked him. I didn't know why. And he said, he's the biggest Buddha, dear. Such a sweet answer. He's like the boss Buddha in Tantra. Shakyamuni is the boss Buddha in Sutra. They're both manifestations of the Dharmakaya. And from the point of view of the Dharmakaya, as Lama Zopa put it, it's like Christianity. There's one. There's like one God. It's true, not complicated. Because, Dharmakaya is pure unmanifest consciousness. So when you achieve it and I achieve it, we're going to be the same Dharmakaya. You can't have more than one Dharmakaya. That's silly. Bump into each other in the sky. That's ridiculous. There's no longer dualism. You have to think about that. But the manifestations of the Buddha, there are billions. And these are the ones in the Bodhisattva path. So you've got Vajradhara, the main one in Tantra. Then you go, then under him you've got 5 divisions. They're the 5 Buddha families. And all they represent, all of these Buddhas represent is just states of mind. This is all psychology. If it's not psychology, it's a load of rubbish. Chuck it out, okay? These 5 Dhyani Buddhas represent either delusions that you're trying to get rid of or the virtues that you're trying to cultivate. And then under those 5 Dhyani Buddhas, the 5 Buddha families, you've got all the other millions of Buddhas. They all belong to the different families. So it's all a highly complex, logical, reasonable, psychological model, you know. And all those Buddhas are all representations either of qualities you want to cultivate or the delusions you want to purify. And some are male, some are female, some are peaceful, some are wrathful, all kinds. Because in Tantra, in the Bodhisattva, the most advanced level of the Bodhisattva path, everything is grist for the mill. Everything. Attachment, anger, rage, violence, jealousy, love, compassion, all of it can be transformed by these high beings, you know. So, Dharmakaya, divided into 2, the Nirmanakaya, which is Shakyamuni for Sutra, and then Tantra is Vajradhara. And then all the 5 Dhyani Buddhas under him and all the other millions of Buddhas. Now, you go across from Vajradhara, and you've got Vajrasattva. He's a white version of Vajradhara. And I think he's related, is like that, because I think he's talked about as being really the main, is the manifestation of the realization of emptiness. Because the realization of emptiness is the main purification. The 4 opponent powers are like atomic bombs on the delusion, on the deluded seeds, or like a fire on the seeds that kind of holds back their growing, prevents them from ripening as suffering. But until you've realized emptiness, you'll never, ever, 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 ever stop suffering. So you don't pull them out altogether with the 4 opponent powers. It's only with the realization of emptiness that we cease all the delusions. And so this is why, among the lamas, that Vajrasattva, because of what he represents, he's the primordial Buddha, the main Buddha, the biggest Buddha deer, but a white version representing, you know, emptiness. This is said to be the most potent of the practices, the Buddhas to relate to for purification. Reality is you can have any of the Buddhas, they're all the same, but this is just the tradition of our lamas, as we know in all the 4 traditions in Tibet. So here, at the second step of reliance, the first part is you rely upon the Buddha. Vajrasattva above your head, you visualize him, blissful white light body, on a lotus, holding a bell, a dorji, etc., etc. And the manifestation of all the qualities of a Buddha in this aspect, and it's our Lama. We think it's our Lama manifesting to help us purify our minds, and we have a little prayer of refuge. But the best one too is be delighted, feel, not to say the prayer and be bored, but really feel you're so happy you found this amazing doctor who's got the methods that you can use to help purify your mind. That's what reliance is, you know, like having found this precious doctor, not just someone who's going to save you. Not like that. Now, there's a second part to reliance, and this is where we now cultivate compassion for those we have harmed. And if we're brave enough, compassion for those who have harmed us. In other words, all sentient beings. And this is called reliance, as I've talked before. The Tibetans have this way of saying, like it says in the 8 verses of mind training, in the first verse, to get the benefit from sentient beings, we rely upon suffering sentient beings. We are trying to become a Buddha. So a Buddha desperately needs suffering sentient beings. That's how we cultivate compassion. Without sentient beings who are suffering, we would never, ever achieve compassion, bodhicitta, therefore the Buddha path. So sentient beings are everything, because they're all suffering, because they're in all the realms of existence with all the levels of suffering. So the whole lot of them, the lot of all the mothers. This is massive, but this is the idea. So the second step, we think of those who we have harmed, maybe today, the cockroaches, the grandma, whatever you did, harming, lying, killing, cheating, your hubby you were mean to yet again, you know, whatever. You remember. It's good to remember some. And in your heart now think of them. The first one's completely about suffering of your own suffering. You're sick to death of suffering. You have this compassion for yourself. Now it's others. And then, of course, you have to cover everybody. And then you think, whoever I have harmed since beginningless time, all those trillions of little creatures that I ate and killed and destroyed and harmed and brutalized and tortured when I was an animal, all those billions of beings over countless lives I have harmed, I must purify now for their sake. I must. I know what suffering's like. They're suffering. And then particularly you think of those who harmed you. This is so powerful. And why would you have compassion for them? Because they will suffer as a result of what they've done to you. So you have such compassion. Then you go to the third step, the remedy. You take the medicine and you do the visualization. Vajrasattva, there's different ways of visualizing. We've been taught by our lamas, you know. Visualizing the nectar coming. There's the 3 levels of purification, the body, speech, and mind. There's different kinds. Truly imagining purifying all the activities, all the negative actions of your body. Imagining purifying all the activities of your negative speech. Imagining purifying all the delusions, which are the root of it. So happy to purify, so delighted as you recite the mantra. The 21-syllable mantra. So powerful. Then the 4th step. Pabonka Rinpoche says this is the most important. Resolve. The decision to change. And that's the point. If this fisherman, this little boy, to complete the story, I always tell this story, when this mother came to me in Courtin, she was crying out of compassion for her boy. He'd died 5 years before when he was 29, scuba diving. Because he was addicted to fishing. Fishermen love fish. They love to be in the water. They love scuba diving. They're just addicted to fish, addicted to the ocean. So he died scuba diving. And she always, until then, thought that, he died doing what he loved. And of course, how do you think drowning is happy? Oh, I'm dying, drowning, I'm doing what I love. I mean, God Almighty. I doubt it. Anyway, she said, where do you think he's reborn? I said, I don't know, but go and ask Geshe Lama Kontrog. Geshe Lama Kontrog, they called him that. Lama Kontrog is like the 3 jewels, and he, apparently at Sarah J Monastery, he was his own little tribute, very independent, went exactly where he wanted, when he wanted, left when he felt like it, came back when he felt like it. He was very independent, very amazing little person, since he was 6, apparently. And so they always called him, all his boys called him Lama Kontrog. That wasn't his real name. And then they called him Geshe Lama Kontrog. So anyway, he lived at Copan Monastery. He'd spent his years in meditation in the caves right up on the border by Nepal and Tibet. When he left India, left Tibet, he went straight, he had dreams from Milarepa, and Milarepa led him to the caves where he used to meditate, and he spent years up there meditating, getting realizations. And Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. He lived naked, no sleep, no food. He could, he could manipulate the weather, because this is the point in these tantric practitioners. When they can manipulate their internal energies, they can manipulate the external energies. There's nothing special. Because the Buddhist model of the universe is it's made up of the 4 elements. And that the elements have no power from their own side. That what causes elements to be volcanoes or beautiful or ugly or polluted karmically over eons of time is individual and collective actions of sentient beings. Because, why? As Lama Zopa said, in the Kala Chakra Tantra, in the texts about Kala Chakra, they describe in great detail the intimate relationship between internal energy, which is minds, and the external energies, which is the 4 elements. And this body here is the same nature as the 4 elements out there, isn't it? So as Lama Zopa said, and because we've got the subtler physical energies, which are described in great detail in Tantra, the subtle wind energies, the kundalini energy, and the mind running through these 72,000 channels with those wind energies, they say that every sentient being's mind has their own set of 4 elements. The elements and the mind are inextricably linked. So when we go through the stages of death and get to the very subtle consciousness, then that very subtle consciousness is inextricably linked to very subtle wind energy, which is the 4 elements subsumed down to the subtlest level. Because all the 4 elements have components of the other elements in them. And this is just a natural law. The elements are beginningless as well. No one made them. And they've got this intimate relationship with minds. So when we understand this model, then we can see how, as Lama Zopa says, what happens is the mind becomes negative. That pollutes the wind energies, which in turn is what is causing sickness. And that in turn, over eons of time, or millions of years, impacts upon the external elements, causing imbalance out there. So volcanoes and dirty and this and violence out there are the direct result of deluded minds. So the physical universe is the product of sentient beings' minds as well. The elements are there. No one made them. But because of this intimate relationship with our mind has with the elements, the external elements are the same as this one, and they're affected. There's no person up there pulling the strings. Like, for the Western view, it's either the elements themselves, or they don't call them elements. They've got their own laws. Or you've got the Christian teaching, which God made it. Well, the Buddhist one says, even we did, yet again, we made it. So anyway, when you become these great yogis, you can live in the mountains. He was Vajrayogini, blissful all the time, generate their own heat, don't need clothes, don't need food. They have these pills the Tibetan doctors make for the yogis called chulen, taking the essence. And they get the essence of the minerals and the flowers and make them into pills, and the meditators live for years on these. Very skinny, but that gives them nourishment. Well, he didn't even need that. He lived on what they call wind chulen. He kind of ate the air. He was able to live on the energy of the subtle air, Stay fit and healthy. In 6 foot of snow, in winter. Anyway, so there he was up in the mountains. And, so he lived up there for years and years, building monasteries. And then eventually when Lama Yeshe, he was close to Lama Yeshe at Sarah. And when Lama Yeshe passed away, suddenly he just turned up at Courtin and he never left. He sat there for the remaining 20 years of his life. And Lama Yeshe said, Lama Zopa said, that when Lama Yeshe passed away in 1984, as you know, he was the student in the past life of the previous incarnation of Yangtze Rinpoche. So when Yangtze Rinpoche left, when he was born, he was given to, by the father, who was Lama Yeshe's colleague at Sarah J, he was given to Lama Yeshe to take care of, So anyway, when Lama passed away, Lama Zopa said all the smiles at Courtin went away. When Geshe Lama Kontrog came back, and he was also a friend of Yangtze Rinpoche's family, because they were all monks together. Yangtze Rinpoche's father and Lama Yeshe and Geshe Lama Kontrog were all friends at Sarah J. So he said when Geshe Lama Kontrog came, all the smiles came back. So anyway, he was at Courtin at this time, and my friend, I said, why don't you go and ask Geshe Lama Kontrog? So she went to see him, and she gave the name of her boy, and she said, where was he born? I've told you this story already. So he kind of accessed his own inner computer, and I'm not kidding, because they had this perfect memory, perfect clairvoyance. So he hears the name, he's able to say exactly. He said, first he was born in the animal realms, and now he's in the hell realms. And so she said, what can I do for him? And Geshe Lama Kontrog smiled sadly and said, what do you mean, him? He said, what can you do for everybody? And she said it was very moving in her mind. They don't tell you normally, but this really, she's not even a Buddhist, but it somehow touched her heart, compassion. So anyway, that's the story about him. So the point is this. Because he'd been in the lower realms, unbelievable suffering, exhausted that karma, because karma finishes. The petrol tank ran out. Then like a miracle again one day, some virtuous karmic seed ripened that threw him into a really good human life with good human tendencies, with good experiences, good environmental, but he had a tendency to kill. Why? Because he hadn't vowed never to kill again. And that's the 4th step. And he hadn't regretted having killed. So the 4th step first, I'm going to explain what they purify. So the 4th one, the most important for the Bonko, is that you vow. It's like if you haven't taken your vows, maybe you've decided to be a good Buddhist, and so you've decided, I will never kill, I will never lie, I will never cheat, I will never this. You decide. And if you've taken vows, well, you don't have a choice. You've already decided you will never kill, never lie, never cheat, never this, never that. So you better know your vows so you can say them. And you need at the end of the day, I will never break my Patimokkha vows. I will never break my Bodhisattva vows. I will never break my tantric vows. I will never break my tantric commitments. And a vow and a commitment are different. A vow is a decision not to do something, and a commitment is a decision to do something. They're different. And vows are particularly powerful for the Buddha. They say in the teachings, in the Hinayana teachings, the Buddha says, anybody who's living in vows has like this, that has a subtle form that's visible to clairvoyance. And if you live in vows, all the Lamas say, if you live purely in vows, keep your word of honor, your samaya purely, you don't need to do much else. You're going to get enlightened in a few lifetimes, because vows for the Buddha are so stupendous, so huge, which is why if you have got vows, you must do the 4 opponent powers. It's tragic if you don't. And of course you must know your vows. Keep your commitments. So the last step is, I will never do it again. And obviously, this is exactly what grows your mind into what makes you dig that new groove in your mind. So guaranteed, next life you'll wake up like that little boy who had compassion for the lice instead of the little boy who wanted to kill fish. Because he had purified. We can deduce logically the little boy with compassion had purified any wish to kill. And, you know, not only that, but had compassion as well. So we can deduce he must have practiced Mahayana Buddhism. He must have. It's logical. And he's like 40-something now, and he's never killed a living being, you know. So these 4 steps are so important. They all together, as Lama Yeshe says, the 4 opponent powers, it's the power of regret, the power of reliance, the power of the remedy, and the power of resolve that is altogether what purifies. But when you break it down, it's very powerful. Regret. This is from, I read in Geshe Jamba Gyatso, one of the Sarah J. Lamas, a student of Lama Yeshe, who taught for years and years the master's program, Lama Yeshe's program that's still going there in Italy at Institute Lama Tsongkhapa, a 7-year intensive study program. So anyway, he wrote in his commentary on the 35 Buddhas practice. And it's in the teachings, but it's kind of, you see it in the Lam Rim, but they kind of gloss over it. I think it's a very powerful point to remember. It really helps my mind. How these 4 purify each of the 4 ways that karma ripens. So it's like this. Regret, regretting killing, for example, in particular, purifies the kind of karma called the experience similar to the cause, which is your getting killed, or your dying young, or your getting sick easily, having weak health. That's the result. That's the particular result called the experience similar to the cause. And all this is in your notes, in that PDF that you would have got. And if you want that PDF, you please ask somebody to send it to you. There's 60, 70 pages of teachings in that note, in those course notes, with detailed descriptions of karma, the Heart Sutra, emptiness, all these things we've been discussing. Every word I've been saying today is in those notes. So regret purifies the kind of karmic result called experiences similar to the cause. So listen to this one. It's very interesting. Look at it. You know, normally this means next life you won't get the result. But my feeling is that if you really do genuinely, sincerely every day, don't be surprised you start to see the experiences change if they're happening right now. So this is where it's very powerful. Like, you know, when people, we all have this in our life. Someone's mean to us. Someone criticizes us. People at work don't like us. They accuse us of something. We're having this all the time among friends, our family, our colleagues. It's very painful. Being accused, for example, accused of something you didn't do. What happened? Nothing. Okay. Am I going okay for time? Am I running over time? Nearly finished. Okay. Nearly finished. We're nearly finished purifying. Okay. So, regret. I mean, you've been doing it while I've been talking, haven't you? Yes. All can't wait to get home to do your Vajrasattva, to purify your broken samayas and your vows and everything, I bet. And we've got no Tog days between now and then, haven't we? Do we have any Tog days? Tog. Do we have any Tog days between now and then when I go? Maybe we do Tog together. Maybe, do you ever do Lama Chirpa together? You do? Okay, we don't have a Tog day between before I leave? Oh, my Tibetan calendar, hang on. Oh, it is, yeah. Today's a day for taking precepts. Oh, there'll be 8 days. No, we haven't got an 8th day coming. Oh, you did? Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry, I missed it. Okay, so let's keep going. So regret. Okay, so listen to this one. You'll hear it. It's very tasty. We've all had this one. People mean to us when we didn't do anything wrong, okay? People criticizing us, people not believing our words. We've all had this. We all have this. And look, we know how painful it is. All you want is to try and convince this person of how they're wrong. It's so painful, isn't it? You're obsessed with this person, how to change them, how to make them think differently. Well, this is part of the problem. So what we've got to do, the one is regret. So this is how it sounds. Okay, there's someone at work saying, you know, accusing me of something I didn't do. So as soon as we remember karma, and I go, well, this is logically the result of my doing something similar in the past to this person. So then straight away you say that, it brings the story back to yourself and not desperately wanting them to change, because it's not fair. I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Yes, you are innocent in this life, But if you had not done something in the past, if you hadn't sown a seed in the past, you would not be having the fruit now. This is a fundamental principle of karma. One of the first things they tell us. You know, karma's definite. You sow a seed, you will get the fruit. And hey, if there is the fruit, you planted it. It's something so simple but like a joke to us because we're so frantic with trying to deny and feel sorry and it's not fair and I don't deserve it. This is very deep inside us. So right here, you go, okay, this is the fruit of something I did similar. So if it's him not believing my words, then I must have lied to this person. So then you go, well, I regret whatever I did in the past to harm this person. Because you know why I'm regretting it? Because I can't stand the suffering. And guess what? You know that's true because you're having it right this second. It's not abstract. So you can really sincerely say you regret it because here's the fruit right now. Well, all I can tell you is in my own life, you can see as soon as you're doing this, you're taking responsibility. As soon as you're doing this, you're cutting the blame. And as soon as you do this, you're getting to the root of the problem, which is your past negativity. So when you deeply regret it, this helps change the experience. Don't be surprised. It'll help it go away. Don't be surprised, I tell you. It's very powerful. And this is using the logic of karma. But you've got to do it. Think it through logically. And you really, you just have to accept. It makes you so brave, so courageous. It stops the self-pity. It stops the blame. I tell you. That's the first one. Regret. So obviously, we're going to regret from the depths of our heart anything we've ever done to any sentient being ever since the beginning of this time, because we definitely do not want the results in the future. Lower realms, being accused, lied to, stolen from, kicked in the teeth, whatever it might be. That's obvious. Then the second one, reliance. I think I'm not so sure about this one. Maybe it's compassion mostly. I just can't work it out. This is said to purify environmental karma. So you listen to that saying they have. The sentient beings, the ground that you fall down on that hurts you is the very ground you rely upon to stand up. So those very sentient beings who harm you and whom you harm are the very sentient beings you rely upon to cultivate this huge compassion. You know? So they say it purifies environmental karma. And environmental karma is the way the physical world impacts upon you, the peanuts destroying you, the sun burning your skin, the weather being too hot, the ground being stinky, the ground being ugly, the people around you dying young and all being sick and ugly, horrible, paranoid people. All that's environmental karma from different of the 10 non-virtues, you know. In your teachings, you've got all this listed out exactly in those notes. Then you've got the next one. Obviously, the third one, the remedy, that purifies lower realms. I mean, that's a relief, isn't it? Thank God. The fourth one is obvious, and this is the one Pabonka says is most important, and this is the one that if the fisherman had done it, he would have woken up in this life and not wanted to fish. This is the tragedy. The vow never to kill again. This is why this one is incredibly important. You've got to vow never to kill, never to lie, never to steal, never this, never that. And of course, they're the main ones, like your vows or your commitments. But then, you know, you can think about your other rubbish habits, even your own internal habits, not even actions to harm others. And as Lama Zopa says, you don't lie to yourself and say, I'll never feel an angry thought again. That's nonsense. But you really seriously look at your own delusions, look at your own habits, and you make some commitments to yourself. Because this is not, you're not talking to the Buddha here. This is you being your best friend doing this practice, you know. It's not you begging forgiveness. It's not you being holy. It's you being your friend, being accountable, taking responsibility, growing up, being in charge of your life and wanting to change. So you make some decisions. Okay, I won't be jealous for 24 hours, you'll say. I'll watch my mind like a hawk. I won't take something that doesn't belong to me if you haven't taken a vow yet. If you've taken vows, you don't have a choice. You must reiterate them. Otherwise, you're really damaging your own mind. And then the point is, that's what protects you. This is what protects you. Vows are incredible. They protect you. And all a vow is like, you know, when you learn to drive a car, you don't call it a vow that you won't speed. You don't say it's a vow that you won't drive randomly into the wrong lane. But effectively, you've taken a vow not to do it, isn't it? Why? Because you don't want to get killed. Well, look how powerful it is when you know the rules of driving. That's all vows are. They're like Buddha's rules for how to turn you into the person you want to become. They're marvelous decisions to make. They're really huge. And they're so powerful because it's a very super strong intention. And this is another point too that I find is so marvelous. Okay, nearly finished. There's one more point. As Lama Zopa says, just being a nice person, and most of us, if we compare with the world, we're nice people, is not enough. Why? Because there's no powerful karma being created. So please hear this point. It's a technical point, but incredibly clear when we get it. This is why vows are so powerful. Okay, so we're sitting in this room right now, okay? So let's say we don't have a vow not to kill. Let's say some of us haven't taken refuge, haven't taken the lay vows, or whatever. Let's say we haven't got a vow not to kill. Well, you know, we're sitting here right now, and we're not killing anything probably, are we? There's no cockroaches we're about to kill. There's no mice we're trying to get. In other words, there's no intention arising in our mind, is there, to not kill. Would you agree with that? So if the intention to kill is what creates the karma to kill, and even if you do kill, but there's no intention, there's no karma, you get that point? Then equally, if the intention not to kill is very necessary, you with me? But if here we are not killing, but there's no intention not to kill, so we're not creating any karma of not killing. Are you with me, people? So then you've got to ask, well, why do I need to have the karma of not killing imprinted in my mind? Because that's the main practice of morality at the first level of Buddha's teachings. The main practice of morality is the 10 non-virtues. The first one, and if you want to summarize anything in Buddhism, one thing in Buddhism, take one instruction. Don't kill is the one instruction. Don't kill and don't harm sentient beings, which means don't lie, steal, this, that. But the killing is the most intense because it's the most heavy, and they say the most, at this level of morality, which is called the morality of restraint, it's the level of morality in all the Hinayana part of the path, the first 2 scopes of the Lamrim, the wisdom wing. It's the morality of refraining from harming, not killing, not lying, not stealing, not cheating, not bad-mouthing, not this, not that. You get my point? So it doesn't mean merely, simply, passively not doing it. That has zero power. And given to even get a decent human body, forget a proper, perfect human rebirth, but just to get a decent human body, you need bucket loads of as non-killing, non-stealing, non-lying. Are you with me? It's a technical point. So as Lama Zopa says, then also, just being good, being a nice person, passively not harming, is very nice for everybody else. The rats and roaches will have a party. But you are creating no virtuous karma at all. You're wasting your life. It's got to be intentional. So the only time you'll create any virtue and purify is when you see a mouse and you go, oh, I better not kill it. When you put a little baby seed in your mind. Not a very strong one. Why? No emptiness and no bodhicitta. So it's very weak. Right? You with me? So the only way to get ahead of the game, the only way to create any virtue at all is to live in vows. Why? As Lama Zopa says, really simple. The Buddha says that when you have a vow not to kill and you keep it purely, you wake up in the morning, you take refuge, you remember your vows, you purify at the end of the day, you're keeping these vows alive. He says 24 hours a day you are ticking over virtuous karma and you're purifying your mind. That's how powerful a vow is. Can you hear the point? So it's like you're insane not to live in vows. And then insane not to purify at the end of the day. It's a technical point, and this is the real point about karma. This is not enough just to be nice. You're creating no virtue because the mind's not engaging in it. Yeah.
Vow of not killing, but kills cockroaches.
Right.
What is, how can you be again in the path of doing the correct thing?
What, darling? How can you what? How can you what?
If somebody takes a vow of not killing, but
Yes.
kills
Right.
cockroaches.
Yes. All the time, every day.
Not every day, but
They intentionally kill.
yes.
They know they've got a vow, and they intentionally break their vow, and they don't care, and they don't regret it, and they don't purify. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Then they've broken their vow at the root.
Yes.
You want me to swear at you? I'll swear. They are pissing on themselves. You know that word? They're pissing on themselves. They are being insanely, ridiculously, dementedly stupid, making themselves crazy. I'm sure it's not you. I don't know who cares it is, but I always sound so dramatic when I talk.
It is me.
It's completely insane. Well, darling, join the club. Everybody does the same because we don't take it seriously. But you know, okay, you're very brave to confess in public, but do you mean you intentionally break it? Or do you say, oh, I wish I didn't have to, I don't really want to kill?
Well,
what do you say in your mind?
Of course, I talked with them. I told them.
No, I'm not
to
asking you
leave.
that. I'm not discussing that.
I
now
did it intentionally.
So
yes.
okay, so
I
stop.
was like fed up of seeing
Okay, so
them.
listen, stop for a second. You're a good example. You're very brave. So are you conscious you've taken a vow?
Yes.
Okay. And when you do, how often do you kill? Once a day, once a year, once a month?
No, I did it like a few days.
Since you took the vow?
Yes.
Total of a few days since you took the vow?
A few days last week.
First ever time since you've taken the vow?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, you see, the conditions for breaking a vow have to be you know it's a vow and you don't care that you're breaking it. And you don't have a conscience about it and you don't worry and you don't think it's important and you're happy to do it again. Is that how you feel?
Mm-mm.
How do you feel?
I feel awful.
And what have you done about it?
Nothing.
So you've never heard of the four opponent powers?
Well, what I did.
Have you never heard of the
Yes,
four opponent
yes,
powers and you
yes.
didn't do it?
I didn't do it.
Why not? So you've taken poison and you're sitting there going, oh, I've taken poison and I
Yes.
feel terrible.
I feel
and
sorry for myself. Yes.
So look how stupid you are. Just like the rest of us, darling, it's okay.
No, it's. I agree with you.
Okay, then, well, you know the answers. What's the answer then?
I need to do what I need to do.
What's that?
To make the four opponent powers and do practice and mantras.
And what else? I mean, this is where it's
And
tough,
not
you
to
know.
kill again.
But this is where it's so difficult for us. I'm really not trying to minimize how difficult it is. I know it's so difficult. I know we live with these creatures that we don't like. I understand that. And it does feel overwhelming. And it does feel we don't have a choice. So this is why we've got to think about it, precious girl. We've got to think about it. We've got to think about it. We've got to think about it. It's not easy, you know. Do you understand?
Yes.
Think about it. And the thing is, if we take karma seriously, this is why you're just doing the guilt thing. You feel bad, you feel ashamed, you're beating yourself up, I'm a bad person. This is how ridiculous we are. That's like making it worse, sweetheart. We've got to be grown up and intelligent and not be scared. There's no one to be scared of. It's hard because we're so used to thinking in this emotional way about morality, you know. You just got to think about it, darling. And then, I mean, even if you keep your houses immaculate, if cockroaches still come? What stops cockroaches? Besides the exterminators. You see, the point is this. Listen, darling, my feeling is, if it were like this, like if you had an allergy to peanuts, you know you'd never eat a peanut, would you? You just wouldn't do it, would you? Would you agree? Because it would make you so sick. And so because we're intelligent, we can then come up with other options. We can be creative to find new methods. And my feeling is that's the courage we've got to have. From the courage of deciding you want to live morality and you want to not have killing, lying, stealing. This takes great courage to live this way. My feeling is once we have that courage, we can then come up with creative ways to avoid having to do those things. But the other point is to try to have some confidence in this process at the end, the four opponent powers. Because if you are meeting cockroaches as a result of some negative karma, then even this is the first one, by having incredible regret, and I'm not talking about killing them now, but regret whatever it is you did to these creatures that they're doing to you, which is what? Mussing up your house, right? They're messing up your house, right? What do the cockroaches do? Why do you have aversion to them?
I have never liked them.
Okay,
Since
good.
I was a little girl.
Never mind all
I've
that.
never
So what
liked
is,
them.
pin it down, what is the aversion for the cockroaches? Why do you find them do you know why you have disgust? You have aversion for them, right? So they're upsetting your home, right? Upsetting you, aren't they? So if we think of karma, you must have harmed them in the past. Do you agree? So if you do the regret very strongly, and you say, whatever I did to these wretched cockroaches to call them to make dirty in my house, I regret this from the depths of my heart. Then you do the second step and you have huge compassion for them. Then you do the third step and you purify. Then you do the fourth step and you vow you will never kill again. All I'm saying is don't be surprised it starts to change. Are you with me?
Yes.
Can you hear the logic of it?
Yes.
So we've got to be brave to think this stuff through, you know. I mean, this is either is just another belief system, I did my blah, 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 I just have a blah, blah, vow, blah, blah, or it's serious thinking about it, you know, like I'm talking about now. Got to rip it to pieces and pull it apart and look at it logically and grow up from it. Isn't it? Because we're the boss, not Buddha, baby.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
you be brave. What else? Time to go home. 6:10. What? All right. Food for thought? Good. Thank you. Good, yes. Okay. So let's, the causes of this. And it seems to me, so I'm a bit confused. It seems to me the very word cause is like a word seed. Well, seed comes before the fruit. There's no other choice. Mm-hmm. How could it not be linear is what I'm saying. I'm confused. So give me an example of something that's the product of the law of cause and effect, where the cause doesn't come before the effect.
No.
So you're not saying that?
No.
So what do you mean by linear then?
Just one. Yes, like one direction.
Which is past and future.
Yes,
Then, of course it's linear.
in that way.
But that's my point. What is the option? Give me give me an example of something.
When you were talking about karma,
Yeah.
you said karma is intention.
The meaning of the word karma is the mind having a thought that sows the seed in the consciousness. So there's the seed, the thought, then there's the motivation, then there's the action of the body and the speech. There's many things, but the heart of it is the intention.
Okay.
Hang on. So the heart of it. So, okay, a simple one would be, let's say you get sick. Well, they say that the causes of this, not the food that, right now we think the food that you ate is the cause. No, that's only a secondary cause. The main cause of you getting sick, that's one of the environmental karmic results of your past killing. So it's the residual result from an action you did in the past, intention to kill, and then it ripens as a moment of your sickness.
Okay.
So there's many causes, necessarily, of course, but it has to be linear
Yeah. Okay.
in that sense. You understand? Okay.
Yes, I get.
Okay. So what
Thanks.
do you mean then?
About the conditions that, to listen, the vibration, to hear. So if we don't have those conditions, we don't.
There won't be that experience, that moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's what I think he thought about linear, like it was dependent of the object receiving, in that sense, maybe, it's not so linear.
I don't understand.
Okay.
First you have to take one phenomenon.
Okay.
So what is the phenomenon you are discussing? So I am suffering now because I think he punched me. He did punch me, but I think that's the main cause. And I think it's not, I think the main cause of me is my mummy and daddy. So right there, Buddha says you've got wrong logic, therefore you're guaranteed to suffer because you haven't got the correct interpretation of the causes of my moment of suffering. When I think it's him who caused it, then I will blame him, then I'll do all the other actions. Whereas the Buddha says the main cause of his punching me is my having punched him. And then two parts of that. One is the intention to punch him, motivated by a wish to harm him. That sowed a seed in my mind that ripened 2.5 lives later when I meet him and he punches me back. So if I have that interpretation, Buddha says, which he says is an accurate interpretation, then I won't suffer because I will learn from that. I won't blame him, I will accept it, and I know, do I like being punched? No, well I won't punch again. That's a perfect piece of Dharma. But as long as I think he's the cause of my suffering, I get angry, I punch him again, and that perpetuates samsara. This one finishes it. Do you see what I'm saying? Are you sure? Okay. Good. So Buddha's just saying he's not being moralistic. You see, we're so used to thinking that religion is a belief system that we're supposed to believe in what Buddha says. No, I don't want you to believe a single word Buddha said. You don't believe in it. That's just intellectual laziness. But you take it as your hypothesis. You've got to learn it and listen to what he says. And then you apply it to your experience. This is anyway what practicing Dharma means. Not just say, oh, it's karma. What do you mean? Oh, I don't know, past karma. You just say that, that's just stupid. You've got to know the words. You've got to learn to know what is the cause of getting killed. Why did I get punched? Why is somebody out there not believing my words, even though you're speaking the truth? You have to know it's because you have lied in the past. This is not complicated. Why are you living in an environment that's very stinky and smelly and ugly? Smelly, because of sexual misconduct. Why are you living in an environment that's very violent and paranoid because of harsh speech in the past? These different things. It's very simple. Buddha's little list of 10 non-virtues, he's got these different explanations. It's not complicated. Eventually, to actually directly experience, from direct experience, know the causes of everything, that's when you're a Buddha. But this is what Buddha says. Everything in the universe is knowable. By definition, our mind can cognize everything. When we're a Buddha, we can do the experience of that sound. Is that the name of the phenomenon?
Yes, the vibration.
So the name, no. So let's first, we have to state the name of the phenomenon, and then we will look at the causes of that phenomenon. So what is the name of the phenomenon we are about to discuss?
The ringing of the...
No, that's one of the causes. What the name of it is your... listen.
Well, yeah, the sound.
Not even the sound. The name of it would be your experience of an experience of your ear consciousness. So then there are many causes for this. Your ear consciousness, your physical body, the air, the thing hitting it. So they are all the causes that
if there's no noise outside that will prevent from...
Whatever. They are all the causes that have to come together to produce one moment of your ear consciousness.
Yes.
That's what we're discussing.
Yes.
So in that sense...
It's like round. No? I mean, please.
What do you mean by round?
Well, that it could be just hitting the gong and then having it.
But that's a cause. What are you? You have to name an object first. Listen, the universe is full of trillions of different phenomena.
Yeah.
Each one of those phenomena has many causes. So we first have to establish the name of the phenomenon you wish to discuss. And so we have decided the one we are going to discuss is your experience at 15 minutes past 3 of a sound. That's the name of the phenomenon. So then we have to look at the causes of it. Well, then obviously they all have to come before you have the experience.
Yes. Yes.
Even that. Forget about past karma from past life, you know. You see?
Yes.
So we have to name the phenomenon, and then we can see it has your ear cognition.
Yes.
That moment, 1 second of cognition of sound. Many, many causes have to come together to produce that phenomenon.
Okay.
Are we communicating?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So of course we were talking mostly about the phenomenon called I and my experiences of happiness and suffering, and the way we suffer, and the way we have now, for the Buddha, completely wrong interpretation of the causes. Isn't it? This, which includes all the karmas. Buddha says this is true. So we're taking this as our hypothesis. And the point I'm saying here is, the point the Buddha's making is, our wrong understanding of why I'm suffering, he punched me, causes continuous suffering. Because if I think he punched me, I think I don't deserve it because I did not punch him first. So then the logical reason in our world is, therefore he's wrong. How dare he punch me? I didn't do anything to deserve it. Then of course I'm going to be upset. Of course I'm going to have fear. Of course I want to sue him. It fits. This is the materialist view. Buddha says you've got it wrong, Robina. If he punched you, logically you have harmed him in the past. It would not happen if you hadn't. If he kisses me, gives me $100, logically, I created that. I was generous in the past. So having this explanation, the Buddha says, not only is he saying it's correct, but having our mind become familiar with it and apply it in our life, that is a method for stopping suffering. Because it stops blame, it stops attachment. And eventually it'll help me realize there's no I from its own side. There's no experience from its own side. There's no killing from its own side. There's no suffering from its own side. It's a practical thing. It's like learning mathematics. You've got to get your facts straight. That means we have to know the words. We have to know the words. Yep.
When people say unintentionally, something happened, they were driving and they were not maybe too focused on, and something happened and he could not avoid to crash someone. And it was really unintentionally.
Okay.
How is that phenomena
that is
explained in Buddhism?
Easy, okay.
Okay.
So that you're driving the car. No, I'm driving the car. I don't see you. You run in front of me, and I run you over, and you die. So there's various things there. First of all, there is the karma you created due to your past negative action to get killed. And that's the karmic result of your having killed. Okay? You wouldn't be killed otherwise. Every fish that gets caught in the fishing, they created the cause to be killed. Every lamb in the slaughterhouse, they're in there because they created the cause, probably by being the slaughterman in the past life, you know? So they create the cause to get killed. So you created the cause to get killed. Try. See if it works. Does it stand? Really, you think? I don't think so.
I think we'll hear you.
No, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is fine. This is better, much better.
You sure? Okay.
Holding it so. I'll try and put it in my ear again. I'll keep my glasses on. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it should surely go that way. No, it obviously doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's lower.
Why not that way? See that thing? Oh no. It doesn't matter what. It's most weird. I'll hold it. I'm happy. Okay. Questions? Any questions? I'm sure you're having all deep debates about emptiness out there. No questions? Yes. Yes. Okay.
One. Going back and then to the future.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the class, you said about the cause and effect.
Yeah.
It's a law. It's natural law.
Yes.
So this is not linear law.
Yes.
It's
It has to be. Isn't cause and effect linear?
linear
Is it not?
in a straight line.
It has to be. How else would it be?
Has to be.
Well, how else would it be? Give an example of cause and effect that's not linear.
When you say if I take this and do cause effect,
Yes.
but as you were explaining, it's not only this and this, but we had to have other
Conditions.
other conditions, not just one condition.
Okay. It's a question. We have to take the object we're going to discuss. So the object could be an event. So an event has many causes. That you have to be there, you have to have the ears, the person is there, the past karma. There's many, 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 many things.
Yeah.
Then, or you have an example of a cup or a person. So it seems whatever object you take, you have to look at what are